I'm Blair Crawford from Post Media News, and we're here in the foyer of the House of Commons with Joanna Mazgala, who's curator of the House of Commons, and she's going to tell us a bit about this space that we're in.
So we're standing in the foyer, and the chamber of the House of Commons is directly behind us. The door here is where MPs would come through. So they would come up, they would come into this kind of grand space. Architecturally, it's supposed to set the tone. As you know, this is a neo-Gothic building in terms of its architectural flavor, but it has a distinctly Beaux-Arts plan, so very clear orientation. So although we're here on the side of the House of Commons, there's a mirror over on the side of the Senate. So they have a foyer and then they go into their chamber as well. In this space, we see some of the hallmarks of John Pearson, the original architect. So most distinctly the ceiling, which he designed. This is one of the most sort of overtly referential pieces to government within this building in terms of all of the openings for the glass describe different ministries and different parts of government. So you have symbols for justice, for environment, for trade, etc. When the building first opened in 1920, most of this decorative architecture was actually blank. The architect designed the space so that each successive generation would be able to add to the space. So first came some of the decoration along the pointed arches, and then up at the very top, lining the ceiling. And then later on in the 60s, this frieze, the history of Canada, was added by then Dominion sculptor Eleanor Milne, who was actually the first and so far only woman sculptor for Parliament. Eleanor Milne worked on this frieze in situ, so she actually went up on scaffolding and did the carving in here. It took about 5 years altogether, and they would carve at night when the house wasn't sitting, and then in the daytime when the house would sit, they would take everything down, they would put it all away. At that time, the Dominion Sculptor's Office actually had a workshop located in this building underneath the Senate chamber. So after the house would rise, they would come back with all their scaffolding, put everything up again, and they would start over.
So Joanna, there's quirky little carvings here, like I think there's a lobster up there somewhere.
There is, and there are little moments of kind of surprise and delight all over the building. Little creatures and plants and animals from all over the country. And then some mythical creatures. There's a phoenix every so often, a reference to the fire. There's also the bull, which is a reference to the fire as well. And then depending on where you are in the space, there are nautical elements, so sea creatures, starfish, and all kinds of mythical or real creatures from the sea.
The new sculpture that's being commissioned as well, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we've commissioned a new piece by an artist from Nunavut, Bart Hanna, and next year in 2019 it'll be the 20th anniversary of Nunavut becoming part of Confederation. All around the foyer, one of the lovely things about this space is it's not just architecture and decorative elements designed by the Dominion sculptors, but this is the one space in the building where we have commissioned pieces from other artists. So we are lined here with art by Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit artists, mostly in the tympanum above all of the doors, and then the two friezes down below as you come into this space. So Bart is working on the piece for us now. It'll be delivered in sometime in March to coincide with beginning of April, which is the 20th anniversary itself. The piece will be on display over in West Block because we won't be in this building. And then once the restoration begins, we'll install it here.
There's all sorts of little amazing embellishments here. Do you have a particular favorite that you see?
Well, I have to say that every time I come into this building, I really do see something different, and I think that is probably my favorite thing about the building, and that's really a hallmark of that style of architecture, the ability to surprise and delight, and the fact that everything is so intricately decorated, so that every moment, no matter where you are, you see something different.
A little surprise every day when you come into work.
Yeah, and that's very deliberate. I mean, this is a very serious place. This is where legislation is made, but in terms of the architectural language, there are pieces all around you that are supposed to inspire you and inspire your sense of wonder and sometimes make you laugh and change the tone a little bit so that you can focus on the job it is that you have to do here.
So when you come into the center block of the Parliament buildings, you enter into Confederation Hall. So tell us a bit about this amazing space here, Joanna.
So this is the space that really sets the tone for the building. So it's a circular space and it echoes the library space, which is the only remaining piece of the old building. And it's joined to that space by the Hall of Honor. And when you think of this building, we tend to think of neo-Gothic architecture from the outside. But this space really marks the fact that this is a Beaux-Arts building. So clear plan, clear orientation, and hierarchy of design. So we're in the center of the space. We've just come up the stairs into the building, as they used to do. Everything to your right-hand side is the Senate. Everything to your left-hand side is the House of Commons. This is the main processional space. Within this room, you are surrounded by signs and symbols of the provinces and the territories, all of their emblems, as well as the emblem of Canada. Every province and territory, including Nunavut, the most recent addition, so that was added in 2008. And we've got, again, animals and plant life and things to tell us a little bit about where we are. And then also the main metaphor for the building, the concept of the ship of state. So Pearson imagined government like a ship on a rocky sea, that no matter how rocky times could get, there was always order in good government. So at the base of this column is a rose compass, and then along the bottom of the column you see the waves and you see Poseidon. Over here in the marble is the sea, then the earth, and then of course the universe on the other side. And the notion is that, of course, the Prime Minister is the captain of the ship, and that their job, of course, is to steer. So some of the spaces within the building have nautical imagery, including the Prime Minister's office, but also the two speakers' offices, because, of course, this is their house. They are the ones who welcome you into this space. They are the ones who have the main place in terms of its function. So the floors in their offices are all teak and ebony, which is to mirror the idea of a ship. And that flooring is the original flooring that was in the chamber as well. MPs still come through this door and people who work here, but the public stopped coming, they exit the building through here, but they stopped coming in through the main, that was in, I don't know, 2001, something like that. It's fairly recent. When I was a little girl, my father actually worked here. He was an assistant to an MP, and we used to be able to drive up the drive, and my dad would come out those doors, and we'd pick him up in the car and take him home.
Okay, Joanna, where will we go next in the tour?
Well, next I'm going to take you inside the chamber, and we're very lucky. We're going to go onto the chamber floor. Typically, only MPs are allowed into that space, but because the House isn't sitting, we'll be able to go in and look at it up close. Let's go. So here we are on the chamber floor. So this space, obviously, normally is quite lively and busy when the House is in session. But it was as well designed entirely by John Pearson, the architect, from the ceiling all the way down to the floor, the desks, the chairs, the paneling, all of the decorative elements. Again, as I was mentioning earlier, some parts were left blank. So later on, when we celebrated the centenary of Confederation, a certain amount of decorative work was commissioned for this space by Speaker Parent, including the stained glass windows, which are references to the provinces and territories at that time. And then below them, the architectural panels, the decorative pieces, tell the story of the BNA Act. So again, each are signs and symbols of different aspects of legislation, because that's what they do here in the chamber.
It's amazing the intricacy of the carving here in woodwork, eh?
It's quite spectacular. I mean, there are little squirrels and other little animals, little maple leaves all over the place, acorns, and they're all, again, references. I mean, this is a space where you are elected to be here. You come from all different parts of the country, and the architect really wanted people to be reminded of that task. These are the people who bring you to this space. This is the job that you have to do, and so you deserve to have this really beautiful, incredible space in which to do this very important work for the country.
So Joanna, these desks and chairs, these are the original desks as they were designed by John Pearson.
They are. So these are all oak, and the room is paneled all in oak as well. The designs were done by Pearson, but he commissioned Bromsgrove in Montreal to do the actual woodwork. They're all hand carved. And so the front elements all have these kind of beautifully intricate panels with the thistle, the rose, the fleur de lis, and the leek, and then Canadian maple leaves all the way through. The chairs are also Pearson design. And then these are the spaces that have been used right from the beginning, from the 20s when the building was first opened.
And these desks and chairs will be moved over to West Block when the Commons moves in?
The desks and the chairs will all be moved over to West Block. The clerk's table behind us and the clerk's chair and the table officer's chairs will be moved. And then at West Block, we won't be using this speaker's chair. We'll actually be using Speaker Rhodes' chair. So that'll be the temporary speaker's chair for the duration of the time that we'll be over at West Block. Before 21, when we were given the chair that we have as a gift from Great Britain, every speaker actually had a chair commissioned for them. And so Speaker Rhodes was the last from that tradition. He was speaker while we were over at the Victoria Memorial Building as the temporary space for the House, and then he was speaker here. So that chair was used over at the Victoria Memorial Building. It was used in this space when they first opened on the 28th of February 1920, and then we are going to be using it for the interim.
So where will we go now, Joanna?
Well, next I'd like to take you to see the Prime Minister's portraits. So we'll leave the chamber and we'll go down the hallway.
Okay.